Let's do it.
I will live. Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. Hope you're all safe and well. Another day closer to Christmas. Not by long now to the fat chap comes down that chimney. If you've got one, if you've not got one, he'll come in your front door. So keep it open. You know what I mean? Anyway, tonight we have our Laura with us, which is a rare occasion. She's down there, and we are welcoming back. I'll get her name right this time. Last time I called you Catherine. Caroline McKendrick-Gibson, historical researcher, author, paranormal investigator, etc., etc. She does quite a wee bit, but the last time I was calling her Catherine, and her name's Caroline. So, but
I respond to most things. Don't worry about it.
It was a mental note, get the name right this time. I've done it a few times on shows. There's Sarah watching for next door. IB. I've done a few shows. Well, I've done a lot of these shows, but I've done some shows and I've got their name wrong or I've forgotten their name. I don't know if you've ever done that. You've done a podcast and you've forgotten the guest's name. And even though it's right in front of you on the screen, you still forget it. And it's that sort of mental pause for like 5 seconds and you're trying feverishly to remember their name. But I remembered yours and I remembered Laura's. So tonight we're going to be talking about, what are we going to be talking about, ladies?
Well, you told me that you wanted to talk about Poltergeist. We don't have to.
Laura's lost. I told her, Laura, I spoke in a video call about half an hour ago, Caroline.
No, you tell me we were talking about Romans.
Aye, a mailed and says, I hope you've read up in Romans 250 years BC. And she's like, I thought it was Poltergeist. She said, no, we changed it.
I can't help you with the Romans.
Apart
from long straight roads, and that's all I know.
Neither can I.
Floor heating and water for the house. That's it. Done. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
And not very nice bathrooms for what I've seen and read. But no, I like to try and catch Laura out every night. Sometimes it works.
I'm getting used to it now.
Sometimes she'll fall for it, sometimes she doesn't. So, Poltergeist and Ghosts. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I've not had much experience with poltergeists. I've heard of one or two, and that's really it. So there's really not much I can say on the subject. Over you, Caroline, what's your experience with them?
I have been lucky to have several high-class hauntings that we've looked into. The first one, I think I touched on it before in Sherborne, or it's Dorset. It threw things up that I've never experienced before. And, when you become interested in the paranormal, you start off maybe urban exploring or, little things like that. And then when you start to get into investigating and you have a group, you get cases that come into you. And I think it must have been about 5 years in that this case came to us. And it was just strange. When we went there to interview the people in the house, very weird things was happening to the equipment. And I'm not talking cat balls or, K2s or anything. It was scientific bits of kit that we took with us, and we were having loads of anomalous readings, and we got a very high reading of 64 milligauss at the bottom of the stairs, which is where they were saying that they were seeing a lot of the dark shadows. So we did like taking the readings and everything on the first day, and then we returned for an investigation. And when we returned, we were upstairs in the bedroom that a lot of the activity was reported to be coming from. And I put on my speakers with my digital recorder because I wanted to hear it live time. And it was making funny noises coming through, and I thought that the batteries had gone. So I said, I need to go downstairs to get some new batteries to replace them, otherwise we're not going to hear anything. And I left the speakers running up there, went down, got the batteries, come back, and it was voices coming through. And I thought, I don't know where it's coming through. Maybe it's picking some radio station up or something. Wasn't quite sure what was going on. And then when I went to take the batteries out of the back of this speaker, it wasn't switched on.
Oh,
So
Right.
it was that kind of stuff that was going on. And I'm sat there thinking, you know, I was gaslighting myself. You're imagining it. You've done something wrong with the equipment. Check it. Make sure that you haven't made a fault with it. So I'm sat there. You can hear me on the recording. I'm baffled. I'm just sat saying, right, everyone just sit still a minute when I try and work out what's going on. I couldn't work it out. The voices were coming through the speaker. I thought because it was, you know, coming on and off and up and down with noise, that the batteries were running out, and it wasn't even switched on. So stuff like that.
The kind of stuff you just cannot explain.
Yeah. And then when we were taking readings, we were hearing footsteps walking up the corridor on the wooden floor. Like it was heeled, hard heeled shoes. Just couldn't understand what was going on. We're looking at the floor. And the floor was in the middle of the house. So even if it was something on the side that it was attached to another house, you would hear that in the other rooms to that side. But we were over to the side where there was nothing attached to the house. And we were listening right there on the floor. And, you know, we can hear footsteps walking through. But the biggest part was this milligauss of 64 at the bottom of the stairs. So, yeah, strange. Very strange.
We something similar, just when you talk about the footsteps at the Ivy House, which we did, I don't know, about 2 years ago now or something.
Yep.
Laura, remember, when I tell the story, I always seem to get it wrong because I'm just thick, you know. Laura remembers it better. But no, I bet she should, isn't it? I put her on the spot now. What's this?
Oh, just a blank thing. No, we definitely heard footsteps. Remember the footsteps that we heard? And you put it down as though it was like old-fashioned type shoes. That was one of them. Do you remember that?
Aye, we were up the stairs and we had two locked off cameras down the stairs, one in each room. And we looked back at the footage later on, and one of the cameras in one of the rooms, the light on top of it, and the light moved. This is the bit I always get wrong. The light moved.
At the top of the camera, it's like a little knob type thing, so it needs to be turned in order for the camera to actually move. But the camera, as we were listening back to the footage, you can hear the click as if somebody was turning it. And as the camera did turn, it was like somebody flashed a flashlight into the room. But that's absolutely impossible to do. You would need to be like 30 foot up to do that. It was not possible. But it was like somebody clicked this little knob and panned the camera right round so quickly that it didn't quite catch in. It was just like a flash of light. It was a very strange thing to see.
The weirdest bit was obviously we picked up. It sounded like wooden heels on the floor,
like clogs.
That's so weird because that's the kind of noise that I heard. Like it was a hard wooden, and it was more. Now, is that footsteps, or is that taking you back to the typical tapping and knocks that poltergeist activity do? But they were making it sound like footsteps. Do you know, the more I talk to people who believe that they've had poltergeist experience, you start putting patterns together of behavior and patterns of activity and things that are alike. So that's really interesting to hear that you said that with the footsteps that sound like wooden shoes. Absolutely.
There was also the same bit of footage. It sounded, I can only describe as a little girl with a kind of playful laugh. I mean, it only lasts about 2 or 3 seconds, but definitely you hear it clear as a bell. It was a playful laugh. And then it sounds like the footsteps come back out of the room. and everybody was accounted for. Everybody was up the stairs. There was nobody else down the stairs or in that house, and that really kind of confused us. That goes, the old brain matter going. I forgot about the laugh till Sarah put it up there. So I'm going to ask a daft question, right? No, I know we've been doing this for over 4 years and that now, etc. But you've got a ghost and you've got a poltergeist. Now I know poltergeist originates from the German word. Is it noisy ghost? I think it is. What's the difference
between a ghost and a poltergeist?
Is there a difference?
Yeah, so there's a difference between a ghost and a spirit as well. So a ghost is believed to be an energy of a replay of a haunting, and ghosts, from most people's understanding, are a replay. So you're watching something like a video replaying back over again. A spirit tends to be called something that can interact with you, and you can have a knock, an intelligent haunting that it can interact. That's generally the term that's given to a spirit. Now, a poltergeist, in society of the paranormal world, it's believed that a poltergeist has never been on the human planet. It's never been a human.
Right.
It's an energy form, and it's only an energy form. I'm not talking about anything that's not human. This is something that comes from within the person, and it can be brought on by stress. And it's believed that it could be something in an untapped part of the brain that causes this activity to happen, or it can encourage paranormal activity. That's the belief.
I know I've read as well some cases that they say, young teenage girls, when they've been through the changes, shall we say, say girl to women, basically, and that can that's been known to create poltergeist activity.
I think that's long decided that that's been disproved now. We have, as you know from the last interview, we have a haunted house that we own ourselves, and we do believe. I don't know where to go to go back again, and every time I go to try and tell you something, I need to tell you something before that. So generally, what we found over all the investigations and all of the study that I've done into the paranormal and poltergeist, even if you have what is classed as poltergeist activity, it always tends to come along with another haunting of a type. So it tends to come along with other things in the house, like your great auntie Maud or your Uncle John kind of thing, I don't know if it is the poltergeist that's attracted to the haunting, or if it's the hauntings that's attracted to the poltergeist activity because of the energy. But where you find one, you tend to find another. And this is why it's so difficult to differentiate between them. And you have to take it back to basics and start logging everything so that you can look for patterns. And I don't just mean patterns as in, does it happen on a Monday? Does it happen at 3 o'clock in the morning? What happens when you get angry? What happens when you're upset or stressed? Does the activity raise its head more when you're upset or stressed? That could be a pointer to say that it's coming from the being, from the person, and it's coming from a stress mechanism in the person itself. It's unlikely. If you've studied something for quite some time, you should be able to pinpoint what it is that's creating the haunting in the house or the paranormal activity. It's not so simple, because paranormal stuff that can happen can be taps, knocks, bangs, things moving from a normal spirit, a normal haunting. But then you get the same stuff happening with poltergeist activity, and it's learning how to differentiate between the two. I think if we ever could differentiate between the two and absolutely hand on heart say that's what it is, then we could probably stop investigating the paranormal.
Okay, do that.
I don't actually know if we'll ever going to be able to pinpoint exactly what is poltergeist and what is a normal haunting. I don't know if we will. This house is clear. When I first moved in, it felt lovely when I first moved into it. But almost straight away, stuff started happening. And the stuff that started happening was the same stuff that my late husband did in the previous house. Very strange, like setting smoke alarms off so that they ring 3 times and nothing else. And when I moved in here, I was having a complete rewire because it was a shell of a house. It was a hole, an absolute hole. So it was having a full rewire. It took 6 weeks, and a friend came over. She was like a surrogate daughter to us. We were really close. And when she came over to see me, she said, "I really miss Daddy Steve," which is what she called him. And I said, "Well, he can't talk to you at the moment because we don't have the smoke alarms for him to set off." And I made that comment as a joke. But instead, the smoke alarm that we put the batteries in the hallway went off at that exact moment for 3 rings. And I was gobsmacked at that. That was very, very soon into moving into the house. After that, things quietened down. And I think it was about over a year, I think, before anything really started to kick off that wasn't accountable to anything that he had done before. And it started off with whistles, and we could hear a dog, and we could hear a man whistling, and it was a high-pitched whistle as if he was calling a dog. And then we would hear a man coughing in the front room and clearing his throat. And then I heard a lady crying, saying, "I'm sorry." And then we started having the clock winder being thrown off of the grandfather clock so hard that it took plaster out of the wall. That was the first time we noticed that, and that was New Year's Eve. And New Year's Eve was the day that my late husband was told that he had like quite late stage cancer, and that he could be treated, but he wasn't going to be curable. And that was on a New Year's Eve. So, that's a pattern of different types of activity that you just have to log. And for the last 8 years of living in this house, I have a full log of every single reported activity and the times and things.
So, just when you talk about smoke alarms, that happened to us in our last house. I don't know if Laura will remember this or no.
I do.
We used the bits and pieces. We did a couple of investigations in our old house, and a couple of things we picked up on that sort of tied together. One was the name Cunningham, and it turned out, when we looked back, there was a guy in the area going years ago. Our town used to be a great mining town, and Laura will know more about it than me because she's from here originally. I don't know, but where we lived, nearby used to be a kind of row of cottages, and they called it the Piece of Plenty or something.
That's exactly it. Yeah, Piece of Plenty.
It was a wee mini village, and it was the miners that lived there, but there was this gentleman that kind of looked after the area, and his name was Cunningham, which we picked up on the investigation. We didn't know anything of this when we did the investigation. But the smoke alarm thing was one day, it started off, I was going to pick the wee one up for school, so it was like 2:45 kind of thing, and I opened the front door, and one of the smoke alarms went off. I thought, well, that's weird, but you press the button. But it kept happening constantly. So long story short, I phoned the house and I said, "Look, there's a fault with these smoke alarms, they keep going off." And they sent a guy out, and the guy kind of looked, he looked at them all, and he kind of looked to me if I had 3 heads. He says, "There's nothing wrong with them, mate." But then luckily enough, just as he said that, the one in the living room went off. And I says, "There you go." He says, well, and I remember his words, he says, I've been doing this for about 20 years and I've never had that happen before. And it was as soon as he said there's nothing wrong with these, the one in the living room went off. And then he just suddenly stopped into Laura.
No, you never heard a thing. Just died.
After that. So as if it was as if whoever was there, as soon as he said that, they've kind of thought, there's nothing wrong with them. Well, what's this? And they've decided to set one off. Just we say smoke alarms. Well, we had a similar thing.
Mine used to go off at like 3, 3:45 in the morning, and they would do 3 rings, and they were all set. I don't know if yours are. They're all set on the same link. So if one goes off, all go off because it's on a big link. You wouldn't know where it had gone off. It would just go woo, 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 and then stop. And then it would be like, well, you bolt up right in bed at 3 in the morning going, did I just imagine that? And you'd walk around and find the light flashing on one, and then you'd reset it, and then nothing again. But they would only go off on anniversaries or birthdays or special days. So like my birthday at 3 in the morning or something, it would go off. So that didn't happen over here in this house. That stopped, apart from that battery operated one, until I would think about a year ago now. It went off upstairs and I sat bolt upright in bed and shouted, don't do that. We've got strict rules. If you want to show yourself in the daytime, absolutely fine, but not at night. Do that again. I know people that will send you downstairs for good. And making a joke. Never had it happen again. I rang the person in the last house that bought my house that I owned with my late husband and said, have you ever had the smoke alarms go off? He said, no, never. And I explained the situation. He said, never. And I've been in this house for 8 years. They bought the house. They've been in that house for 8 years. And it regularly happened there for the 2-3 years after he died. So my birthday had come up this year, and friends of mine took me to a medium. We went for a night, a clairvoyant, a couple of drinks, just a girls' night, and to have some chill out time. She came straight to me. And at the very end, at the beginning, she said, oh, I can see you up on a ladder, on a step ladder. And she said, he's showing me the person here and he's laughing. Now, on my birthday this year, my smoke alarm went off downstairs, but not how it normally would do with the whole of the circuit. It was like that the battery had run out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the boop that it goes.
Aye.
So I thought, well, that's okay. That's my birthday, though, and it's still a smoke alarm. Is that just coincidence? So I put it down to coincidence, and we went out. Anyway, the clairvoyant said to me, I can see you up this ladder and you're changing this battery. And, he's just saying that he was there watching. And I thought, okay, fair enough. At the end of the communication with me, she said, he wants to remember someone to you called Al. And Al's the name of the guy who bought our house from us when I moved. Anyway, I messaged him the next day and I said, I went to a clairvoyant and you never guess what, your name was brought up. And he said, you'll never guess what, my smoke alarms went off last night.
Oh.
Yeah, it's usually, is that coincidence? You know, it's, I don't know.
That's not poltergeist activity, but when you've got someone saying, remember Al, this person just bought my house. They weren't anyone, that was notable in history, so to speak, to my late husband. So I don't know. It's a strange old world we live in, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's when you get weird things that happen. We've all done investigations. We've all had the usual cat balls, K2s, or the usual bits and pieces. But it's when you get something that's, that I think when you get something that's never happened before, it's totally new and you can't explain it.
Oh, like what happened recently to us, like in the barn. We were at the barn, and me and Sarah were, oh, sorry. Just stop it.
I can't help it. Laura sometimes says some words like barn, car. She stays 2 minutes away from us, you know. But anyway, carry on, dear. Sorry.
Disruption the show, Mr. Mathewson.
Sorry, Al.
Very recently, we did an investigation. It was a few months ago, up at the barn. Is that better? And Sarah and I were conducting the investigation, and Scott had said, I'm going to go a walk. So Scott was on live and went a walk. And me and Sarah were in the barn conducting an investigation, and a name came through. Do you remember what the name was, Scott?
Harriet.
Harriet came through on one of the apps that we were using. But as Scott was on the live as well, obviously unknown to Sarah and I, Harriet, one of the viewers that were watching the live, kept saying that they were picking up a lady called Harriet. And when Scott came back up, we told Scott, you know, what we got as it was live, and Scott told us what he got. So it kind of collaborated. And that's never really happened, hasn't it, not Scott?
No, that's never happened to us. And then the girls got He's Coming.
Oh, yeah.
Just as I was coming back up to the barn, they go through He's Coming. But the weirdest thing about that night, Caroline, I thought was the vape smoke.
Oh, that was odd.
I spoke to Barry John about this, and he could not. He was stuck, basically. Sarah was sitting in a chair, and she was vaping, and when she blew the smoke, I don't know if you call it smoke. It comes out of vape, I don't know. Vapor. All right, sorry, vapor. When she blew it to the right, it just went its normal way kind of thing, you know. But when she blew it to the left, it went a normal way. She blew it to the right, it only went maybe about a foot and a half. I thought you guys, I thought you were putting your hand up there, Laura, to speak. School.
No, I just think it was like it was hitting a wall. There was no, it just stopped and just dropped. It was unusual.
Yeah.
I tried to have a cigarette to see if we did the same thing. We didn't do the same thing. But just there's vape smoke, and there was people watching. Everybody could see it happening on the live, and we just could not explain it. And it's when you get bits and pieces like that that's totally, you know, I was going to say unique, totally new. You start to, I think that's when you start to wonder. As you say, the smoke alarm. It was your birthday. The smoke alarms went off. The medium gave you, the guy, the name Al. I wouldn't put that down to coincidence.
No.
You know, I think there's somebody there trying to say happy birthday to you.
Well, it was strange that when I rang him up and said, has anything kind of like gone on? It was only a few days before, because I was writing stuff up on for a magazine article. And I wanted to ask him if they had anything that had happened in the last 8 years. And he said no. And then after that, he then, rang and said, you never guess what happened. It's very strange. Very, very strange.
It's when you get somebody outside your kind of circle sort of thing, paranormal, that gets in touch with you and says, look, this happened. Then that's hard to, use all word debunk. It's when we did Loud and we get through the necrophonic. I was asking we were in the Kirk, and there's there's close connections to the farm. And I says, listen, there's a circular wall behind the farm. Can you tell me what used to be behind that wall? And we got back sheep. And then I says, we Rosie Cardy, she was there with us. I said, can you tell me what colour the sheep was? Where? Because there's brown sheep and black sheep up at the farm. And it came back clear as a bell, brown. Clear. And so I asked a wee while later, I said, well, I've forgotten the colour of the sheep. Can you tell me what colour the sheep are? And it came back brown. But the weird thing was, a few days later, one of the guys that owned the farm texts us and says, "Listen, I don't know, mate, he's lived there for quite a few years. He says, you're not going to believe this. There's brown sheep in the field next to the farm. And all my time here, we have never, ever had brown sheep here. But I'm standing looking at brown sheep." And so, well, that's where we go on our investigation. And he's entirely neutral. He's got nothing to gain. You know, it seems that the guy you were talking about, it's when you get things like that tie together.
Yeah.
Two different parties, then you really need to think. But I mean, Poltergeist, by means of Poltergeist, maybe I've watched too many films. I don't know. But it's always like slamming cupboards and smashing dishes and all that kind of stuff.
Did you manage to read the magazine article that I wrote?
I've not had a chance yet. I will.
Want me to run through the list of what I listed out as being things.
You could,
Oh, I won't bore you too much about.
No, it's fine, though. It's fine. You're on here to chat. That's what I always say. You're on here to chat. So
obviously you have the certain nuances that you get with all kind of hauntings, like the tapping and the rapping. But one of the main signs of poltergeist activity is the tapping. So that can start off very, very gentle. And then obviously you can then move on to really loud bangs. And the bangs are said to be undescribable from where they're coming from. They're alleged. So, you know, you can get a massive, big, huge bang and think that it's coming from a wall. But when you walk over there, it moves and it changes place and it comes from somewhere else. That's something that's very typical of a poltergeist activity kind of thing. And then you have the bad smells and the odors that come from nowhere. But you can also get those in normal hauntings as well, you know, as a memory type kind of thing. So you might find a sweet smelling perfume if it's a lady that's been known to haunt the place. But alongside of the poltergeist activity, it's bad smells. So it would tend to be something that would be rotting meat or rancid sweat kind of thing that's been reported. When we dealt with a alleged poltergeist case a year ago up in Essex, and we were part of the crew for the SPR, the Society of Psychical Research, we went to this house and they'd been alleging bad smells. And we did smell a couple of things up there, but we kind of dismissed that and thought that it might have been something that was making that happen up there. Anyway, fast forward to last year in the spring, summertime. Martin had asked me to marry him. So we went to a wedding fair, and it was when I was writing this magazine article. So I can remember sitting saying to to Martin, you know, reading out the little bits of the article and talking about stuff that would happen. And the night before, I'd rang my editor and I was talking to him either via text or something, saying, can I just have it back? Because it was 13 items that I picked. And I said, I just need to put one more in there because it's a bit cliche, being 13 and being a poltergeist. And he said, yeah, okay, that would give it a bit more of a spin. And of course, I've read out things that was happening and stuff like that, and talked about this haunting. And of course, I'd come back from being at this wedding fair, walked in the front door, and as soon as I got in the front door, the smell of rancid sweat, like I just walked into some dirty man's body odor. And I'm not talking like, you know, the difference between a clean sweat. If your partner goes out running for 10 miles and comes back, that's a different smell to someone who's a homeless guy or somebody who's worked on a building site all day, and then they put the same clothes back on the next day and then the next day. It was like I'd walked through a building site, 5th day, wear clothes, no shower in between. And it was really rancid. And the smell was very intense. And I said to Martin, can you smell that? And he said, oh, God, that's awful. Where's that come from? And it disappeared just as quickly. And then in a different part of the house, half an hour later, the smell came back again. I've never had that happen since, that smell, until a week ago. So that's really weird that that's happened. We do, however, get fresh cigarette smoke, tobacco smell, and that smell of rancid tobacco smell, you know. So I don't know if you've ever smelt like an ashtray where you've got old cigarette butts and it's that smell that's been hanging around. We get that here occasionally. That tends to be in the front room. So the rancid sweat was when you came in the corridor, which is one of the most haunted parts of the house. This room and the kitchen is also very busy, but the front room started having cigarette smoke, and it's like, and that's only occasionally in there that you get that, and that's only happened from when we went up to this Essex poltergeist, and we didn't know, because we had some really weird stuff, whether we had some contagion. Did we bring back the poltergeist activity? Did it attach? Did it come back via us to say, you know, I'm still in existence? Because I think it is belief within the paranormal community that when a poltergeist has become a long-term thing, it can distract from that person and detach, and it can then become its own on its own right. So then it can, does it have free movement in that case? Does it need to do that? Does it need to move? Because it's the person's coming from within the person, it's working on your neuropathic. It knows what you're going to say before you say it. So there is a, you know, a delay from when your neuropathic fire that message to your mouth saying that thing, and by that time it's already happened. So this is what I tend to say: if you're in a place and you're undecided, is it poltergeist or is it a normal haunting? If you say something like, oh, the knocking in the kitchen's not happened again for the last 5 minutes, and as you're about to say that, the knocking starts again. So, you know, that's one of the signs of poltergeist, that it knows you're going to say something and it does what you're going to ask for. And we've even trialed this by writing certain things down outside of the house on a piece of paper, and then I say, right, I'm going to ask this question when I go in, and if it happens, we know that it's, you know, it could be poltergeist, because there's no other way that they'll know. And then you show the piece of paper, and you know, this is a good way to test it, kind of thing. Sometimes in haunted houses and places that we've been pretty lucky in our group. We've seen a good few full-figured apparitions over our time of investigating. One of them being in here, in this place as well. But with poltergeist, it's never a full apparition. It's dark shadows, and not always human height and size and shape. It's just like a dark shadow, and you look from the corner of your eye, and then when you look, it's gone. Or it could be child height, or it could be animal height. It's something that moves fast, dark shadows. That's always one of those things. And then another thing that's very well recorded is apportations and real apportations of objects. So, for example, we have stuff that goes missing in this house. It hasn't done it for a while, bizarrely. So Martin, my husband, had bought himself a new sports watch because he's an ultra marathon runner, and he wanted to wear this new watch out on this ultra marathon training. Plugged it in, then couldn't find it, and it had gone missing for about 6 months. So he bought himself another one, and literally the day that he bought it, his other watch turned up in the place that myself, him, and the cleaner that we have that comes in, we all strip the whole of the side of the seat out down by where he sits, nothing. And then it comes back in a place that's really unusual. Also, he had like one of these pens that you use for writing on an iPad that turns your own writing into text for his patients in clinic because he's a psychotherapist, and couldn't find the pen anywhere. It totally went missing, and then it turned up somewhere very strange about a week later, and he said, well, I've never even been to that part of the house, you know, with the pen. So apportations. Some people in high known activity cases have talked about coins appearing, that kind of thing. And then you've got moving objects. So I'm not just talking about the coins appearing, but the moving objects. Like I said, our grandfather clocks throws its key, the lock, you know, the winder to wind up the time. It throws that. I physically watched it happen on one occasion when we came back into the house to pick the keys up. We were going out to the cinema. It was date night, and Martin came down the corridor, and he was going to pick up the keys from the cupboard next to the grandfather clock. And he picked the keys up and turned and walked back. And as he did, I watched this clock winder just go and throw itself. And I went, stop. You know, and we don't have a loose floorboard. We've tested it all. We've checked. Every time this thing gets thrown off, we recreate. Nothing. There's no loose floorboards out there to do that with. I like I say, I watched it, and there was a clear gap of like a human size between the clock and him, and I saw it coming. I just said stop, and he looked and saw it on the floor behind him, and he said, was that meant to hit me? And I said, no, if it was meant to hit you, it would have done, but no, it wasn't. It obviously it just wants your attention. And he said, okay, I acknowledge you're here and whatever it is, but what are we talking to? You know, what are we talking to? Is it energy from us that's a poltergeist? Is it a haunting? Is it my late husband that's followed us from the last house to this one? Who knows?
Did you see you're saying there, Caroline? I'm starting to think now, my old flat, I used to live myself a few years back, and I had things happening in the flat. Now, prior to me living there was a young guy who passed away in the flat, so I always put it down to it being him, you know. And there was weird things would happen. I lived myself, but just a couple of examples. My TV remote, I was a creature of habit. Every night I turned the TV off, I'd take the remote and put it in front of the telly. Done it every single night. She went for work one day, when you turned the telly on, the remote was there. I thought, right, where's the remote? Searched it, could not find this remote, and then there was I had a small hall, so you could see right to the living room through the bedroom. And this was a few hours later. I was sitting in the living room, and I saw this black thing halfway underneath the bed. I mean, my bed was maybe about a foot off the floor. And I thought, well, you know, what's that? And it was the TV remote. Mm-hmm. And I told people about this. See, she must have put it there. I said, why would I put my remote halfway underneath my bed? Mm-hmm. And then another night, I always put the key in the door and turn it 1/4 to the left. It was a thing my dad did to stop people pushing. He always just saying people were going to come and push the key out the door and break in. So he would say, put it 1/4 turn to the left side, then they can't shove the key out. So I get in the habit of doing it. But I went to go to work one morning and the keys weren't in the door. And I thought, right, where the hell are my keys? They were there. I know they were there last night because it's the first thing you do, open the door, put the keys in. They were on the coffee table. But the weirdest thing that happened was I was sitting watching the telly one night. It was a Saturday night, and I had a galley kitchen, no kitchen door. The kitchen was right in front of me, and the bin lid flew off the bin, and I lost the rag. I'm trying to watch this. You can follow me, you just pack it in. Let me watch my film in peace. And after that, there was nothing happened. And Laura will tell you, Sarah as well, I had a big thing for Buddhas. I had 20 odd Buddhas in the house, and they were all positioned in a certain way. Call it OCD, I don't know. But I would notice if a Buddha had moved, and every time I came in, one of my Buddhas would have been moved slightly. And I know myself, I didn't move them. So there's wee things like that. And this is what I sit and listen to you. So maybe that wasn't that young guy, you know.
Yeah. So the moving objects thing isn't just about objects being thrown. It is things that's being out of place and that would be in places that you wouldn't remember. I had that happen when my son had just been born, but that wasn't poltergeist activity. That was totally baby brain. That I ended up putting the margarine in my handbag and then putting the remote control in the fridge or the phone in the fridge.
Yeah.
So I went to work with my tub of margarine in my handbag, but that's totally down to baby brain. So sometimes you have to have a reasonable explanation for that kind of stuff. But you know, sometimes you can have people on cases that report really heavy objects like, you know, cabinets moving and they can hear them being scraped across the floor kind of thing, you know, or a chair being scraped. So yeah, you know, how far do moving objects go? Obviously, I haven't had anything that's been reported to me that has definitive proof on video. I do have a lot of stuff that's been reported that I can disprove that's been faked. That's my next magazine article that's out, all about hoaxing and faking in cases. So that would be one for people to be interested in. Yeah, but you know, we can't disprove everything. We can't turn up with a closed mind to all of these cases, because why would we be investigating them in the first place? So you have to take every single reported comment that's been made about activity and see if you can start forming patterns with all these things that people say. So let's go on to stacking objects.
Yeah.
So stacking objects, coins, poltergeist film, chairs, they outdo most people on the poltergeist film, don't they? The chairs that's on tables.
Aye, you see the person leaving the kitchen and coming back 2 seconds later, and all the tables are all the chairs are on top of the table or something like that. Perfectly balanced as well, I might add.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever been to a case that's had the chairs been reported per se. I think we'll leave that down to Hollywood to deal that kind of stacking.
Definitely.
But I have had cases where people report stacking coins, and that's not that uncommon, to be honest with you. Even Martin has said that he's come into his office upstairs when he's had a run of activity, because they tend to have runs. You can have nothing for a week, and then you have like 3 or 4 things in a day, and then nothing for a day, and then another 5 days worth of stuff. But one of the things that he reported, I think he only said it happened once, was stacking of coins. And he's not a man that stacks coins. He's a man that throws them all in a bowl for me to count out and to put into bags. And he's the man that leaves every single kitchen cupboard open. Bless him.
That sounds very familiar.
That sounds like somebody we know.
It does.
I came in today and 4 of my kitchen cupboards, a bloody big kitchen, 4 of the kitchen cupboards were open, and I went, I was on the phone and I said, well, either it's the poltergeist kicking off or Martin's been cooking. So you have to kind of look and see, is there reasonable explanations? But if you start forming patterns, if you're living on your own and your house has got these things happening, obviously this is stuff to really be concerned about. Yeah. And then the next thing I've put on this list of 14 is temperature changes. Most good hauntings come with a temperature change alleged. I have been in hauntings and in activity places, and I've noticed temperature drops and temperature rises at the time that activity happens. I would be more interested for people to say that they're having temperature changes to start buying a really scientific piece of kit that studies atmospheric pressure. Because I tend to find here because I've got, let me see if I can just reach and find it for you guys. It's a Gove or Govey, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's just a Gove, and it sits in the dining room here, and I've got one in the hallway up on the wall. If you put it in your hand and you take it around the place, it becomes unbalanced with the readings. So you have to just put it in situ and leave it alone. It's that sensitive.
We've got one of them in our bedroom wall.
I was just going to say that, actually.
We've got one of them in our bedroom wall. Never look at it, but we know it's there.
Mm-hmm. So I do, because I always say to you, on you go.
So it's linked to my phone, and if I hear a bang in the corridor, or if I hear like a bang in the kitchen or the dining room, if I hear a man in here coughing, I'll go on and I'll look at the minute that happened, and you can see it's like a change, normally a rise in humidity or something, or atmospheric pressure. Something will happen. It'll be like a big spike, and then I cut that spike and I put it into the log that I have, so that I'm proving that when I'm saying something, and everything's time stamped on my log. So when I say at 9:15 that something happened and I'm typing it at 9:15, the log goes in underneath and shows a spike. And we can start to look more scientifically how these reportings are having an impact on our environment around us. So it's, do away with your cat balls and your K2s. Anybody listening to this that think that they are scientific, they're not. You have to go back to basics. Your pen and your notepad. I've got a pen and notepad next to me in the dining room in case something happens. I can write it down. One next to me in the front room. I am a writer, so I tend to get good inspirations and occasionally just put notes down for that as well. But it's brilliant for writing stuff in a haunted property.
But Laura's your writer.
Are you, Laura?
I don't know. That is, do you know, I've never actually thought of that. That is an absolutely brilliant idea.
I literally have every room you go into, you will find.
Actually, I've got a pen and that sitting beside me right this very minute.
Yeah.
But that was because I was doing some research earlier. But yeah, I've never actually thought of that. That's actually an absolutely brilliant idea.
Yeah. But I've got all of my notes on my phone, and I don't know if you've got an iPhone. If you go into your iPhone and you go into your notes area, I've got our ghostly goings on, and you can see right from the very, oh gosh, where's my camera gone? Right from the day that everything started, I have 8 years worth of logs.
Wow.
8 years worth of hauntings. And that's all the readings that I was telling you about. And you always have your phone with you.
Yeah,
go back to basics, guys. People go, I had nothing to record it. You've got a button in here that you can actually talk, and then it types it. Do what you have to do. Get that information down straight away while you're, while it's fresh in your mind, because your memory can twist stuff and it can have a false memory. So you can look at the clock quickly and go, well, that was 9:15. I heard X, Y, Z happen. And then when Martin comes home from work, I say, oh, something really weird happened. And he goes, look, here's my notes. And this happened to me just before I went out to work today. And you start to put like a pattern together.
We should do that. That's absolutely brilliant. We should do that for Loudon, Scott.
We should. That's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Because we've had a lot happen at Loudon. Seeing shadows, smells, voices, stuff like that. I call it a mini glimpse. This little girl poking at me when you're talking a millisecond, but I know what I've seen. I've had my sleeve pulled when I've been there totally myself. Stuff's happened up at the farm as well. It's just, we should write it down. But what would I like come with, Laura? What about you, Laura? Have you got any kind of? I know stuff's happened in your house, and I'm not talking about Craig leaving cupboards open and stuff.
Okay. My husband's just a lazy, but that's a different subject altogether. I've got quite a bit going on here, but it's not humans I have a problem with. It's animals that are passed over. They tend to come back and live here. and try and coincide with the other animals that I've got now, and it doesn't always work very well. I can assure you. My dog and my cat actually passed away within 3 months of each other. They were best friends, and within a week they were both back here. I live with my husband and our daughter, and I thought I was going mad. I thought it was grief affecting me. Thought, no, I can't take this. But it wasn't till my daughter actually said to me, Mum, I've just saw Shelley coming out the kitchen. I'm like, what? And then my husband, it took him a lot longer. It took him about a year. And he was like, you've just jumped up in the bed. And this has been going on for like 5-6 years now. We've also got 5 other cats down. And you can kind of hear, like, most of the time I know where my cats are because they're mostly in the living room most of the time because they don't like the winter. And you'll still hear the dog and the cat that's passed over coming down the stairs.
That's
or you
weird,
hear the
isn't it?
occasional woof or whatever. It's amazing. Scott's daughter has actually witnessed a few things as well, hasn't she?
A lot of the people in academia in paranormal say are hauntings to do with the conscious. So how would an animal's conscious be different than a human's? Well, they don't necessarily have the same thought patterns about, oh, well, I'll go back and see my owners for comfort. Or, you know, it goes back to primeval instinct for them, doesn't it? That they miss you.
Yeah. Yes.
So so that kind of puts to question about conscious and how people think about why they haunt and things like that. So yeah, it's very inspiring. Definitely.
Just when Laura mentioned the bed, I mean, Carol, you've had 8 years in the house that you're in just now. One thing that used to happen to us quite a lot, it's never happened to you, is in our old house, nothing's happened here yet, that had way. We used to get, I see when Laura was talking about beds, the feeling that somebody was sitting down on the bed. That used to happen on a daily basis, and we've got 2 cats, and we used to think it was maybe one of the cats, and you'd look up, you'd be watching the TV, and you'd actually feel the mattress going down, and you'd look up thinking, was that Pepper or Toby, and there was nobody there. And Laura's a witness. It used to happen on a daily basis, and it became part of life. You just ended up ignoring it. You know, has anything like that happened to you? To your Martin?
We don't tend to have a lot of stuff happen upstairs in the house. It's mainly downstairs because it used to be a dormer bungalow. But that's typical of a normal spiritual haunting, something that can interact with you rather than just watching that energy replay the video over and over again. You know, if it sits on the bed, it must have conscious to know that there's a bed there. Was there a bed there when they owned the house, or have you renovated? So, you know, the conscious question comes in at that point. That's not what I would class as poltergeist activity, but no, we haven't had much upstairs, a few bits. One of the next things on the list of poltergeist activity was the voices being heard. I think we touched on this the last time after I was speaking to my editor for this magazine article. And I'd read this out to Martin the night before, and I was talking about it. So I'll read it to you, but it'll probably kick off tonight now. Although it's not a specific phenomenon only to poltergeist, one of the most frightening signs is the presence of voices being heard. Reports of disembodied voices or whispered conversations are common. That's really particular with poltergeist. You can't make out what it is they're saying. You can hear something, and you can hear whispering or mumbled words. And, you know, you can't actually hear what they're saying. And the type of voices that are reported is male, female, or a child. So this is what I was reading out to the editor. So we had a span of this day we came home, and there was loads of stuff that had happened coming back from this wedding fair. So really weird stuff. Was it because I was writing an article that was just submitted that day kind of thing? And then I wanted to make a change. Was it Poltergeist that was coming in? I don't know. But that morning that we woke up of that day that we went to that wedding fair, Martin was going out for a run first thing in the morning, and it was early. So he was going to get back at lunchtime, I think, and then we were going to go to the wedding fair and have lunch there. So I think he got up at 5 o'clock to go for a run at 6 or something. And his alarm went off at 5. He turned over on his side because obviously he turned his alarm off. And then in the corridor upstairs in the bedroom, I heard a young female child go, la, la. And that was it. He sat bolt upright in bed and went, I said, you heard that as well. Because I'm sat there thinking, have I just had a hypnopompic hallucination where I've woken up with his alarm going off and I'm hearing it? So I put it down to being a hypnopompic hallucination, that I was just waking up on the border of sleep still, and I was excusing what I was hearing as that. He looked up and I said, okay, what did you hear? And he said, I have no idea what the hell that was, but it was a young female singing. I said, oh, okay, we both heard the same thing then. So that's how this run of really weird poltergeist activity started off in our house that day. It even went to levitating jumpers. I can't explain anything else. Oh, don't even get me going on that. I'll have to have a whole private conversation with you about levitating jumper. It sounds like I'm crazy. I was on crutches at this time because I'd hurt my knee, and I'd come into the kitchen without my crutch, just so I could get myself some food. I think I had hobbling, didn't even have one. So I came in, got my food, and over the top of the door, I put the washing that I buy, wash and dry and iron something. I put it over the top of the door. Then when I go up to bed, I take it up and put it into the wardrobes. And they were up on the top of the door. So what are they? 6'6" top of doors. I think that's about the height of a door frame. And
Hold on. I'll find that out. Come here, Craig. Stand against that door. Yeah. But 6'6". My husband's 6'6".
yeah,
There you go.
I can remember somewhere from renovating this house that most doors were 6'6" when I went to go and purchase them. So it was hung over the top of the door. There was 2 jumpers of mine and one of his, and it was like a heavyweight walking top with a zip up. You know the ones I mean, like from Trespass kind of thing. So I put the plate back in the kitchen, walked back out through the dining room door, and the dining room door's on an angle like this, so you go from the dining room door to the lounge door. And my dog, he's a Springer, and he's always going, I'm going to go first. Wherever we're going, I'm going first. Don't have a clue where we're going, but I'm going first. And he will always lead. So had I have knocked jumper off of the door, it would have fell on the dog who leads, and the dog would have gone from the dining room into the lounge, and he would have had the jumper on him with the coat hanger, laying over him. And I'm watching him in front walking. There's nothing on him. I would have noticed had I have knocked the jumper and it fell off and attached itself to me, because it was a heavyweight jumper. Nothing. Didn't even notice I touched the door. Nothing.
Wow.
Got through to the lounge, turned a quarter of a turn to sit on the chair, and there on the floor, completely outstretched arms with a twist in one arm, was this jumper, totally laid out flat on the floor.
Oh, wow.
And it had gone from being, if this is the door and the jumper's facing out with the neck facing outwards, it had gone from being facing out, turning itself over onto the floor with the hanger tucked underneath. And I just sat there and, what's going on? And I just looked at it. That's the only time I've been terrified in this house.
I was going to ask you that, over the 8 years, pardon me, is there any point that you've sat there and been kind of I don't want to live here anymore, or I want to sell the house is cursed, or, whatever. All the usual kind of stuff that goes through people's heads.
Yeah, but if you move with poltergeist, it doesn't necessarily stay in the house that you leave it in, does it? It has been reported to have gone other places, which is the contagion part. That book that I mentioned to you the last time by Darren Ritson, he talks about contagion poltergeists. Yeah, so it is a reported phenomenon that is alleged to happen. So there's no point in selling up and going if it is poltergeist. But my house, despite the fact of it being pretty bloody haunted, to be honest with you, it's a lovely house, and it's only downstairs, and it's only occasionally, and it's not anything bad. Doesn't physically hurt you. So why would I want to leave a beautiful house that I've renovated? And it's got a really nice atmosphere apart from the dining room. I don't like the dining room, and I'm sat in it interviewing most people, but lights on and a nice ring light, it makes it warm and welcoming, and we entertain in here. And tomorrow night our team are actually investigating our house. So
oh wow.
Yeah, we started investigating it about 6 months ago now, because 8 years is long enough to record things, and we want to see what else we can find. Slow going, we're not really getting much, which is making me think more poltergeist, more than anything else, has been active recently. But the interesting thing is, when our house has periods of quiet, our next door neighbour has a run of stuff, and they have a man coughing, they have cigarette smoke, and they have whistling.
Oh.
This I might be totally wrong here, whatever, I don't know. But when you get your quiet period, and then say it's a man goes next, I don't know, it sounds like he's just kind of no playing you off, but I'm going to have fun with both these houses, and I'm just going to, I'll give them a wee rest. I'll go and annoy this one, a couple of days there, right? I'm going back to sort them out, kind of thing.
When we started, when we started this, and I was saying to you, it's so important that you log things, because you'll see patterns. So Karen and Mike, our neighbours, started to have stuff happen in their house before they joined our team as investigators. So and it's like, well, just start logging it. Don't just keep telling me. Log it, and then we'll start seeing a pattern. And I didn't ask her anything for over a year, and she said, when are we going to sit down and compare the patterns? It's been a year now. So we sat, and I said, right, January the 1st we had activity here, 2nd nothing, 3rd nothing. And she said, right, the 2nd we had nothing in our house, the 3rd we had, and every time I said I had nothing, she had a run of it there. It's been a bit quiet here for a couple of weeks ago, and for the last 3 nights it's been really busy, with bangs and knocks coming from in the kitchen, massive big crashes in the kitchen. She'll be quiet over there now. But if you go back to when this house was built, the person who lived here, the father, he did die in this house, even though somebody told me that he didn't, because I asked that, who died in the house, and people said nobody. On the history research, I have found out that he did. Now, he was good friends with next door, and they smell cigarette smoke in their lounge, but the lounge wasn't there originally. It's an extension. So it would have been where they would have gone outside on the patio to have a cigarette. And where they were friends, they were in each other's houses all the time. So does he just pop over to see his pal?
Oh, that's lovely.
Well,
see, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
We're not connected. The houses aren't connected. They are probably, about 100 foot away. So it's completely, my house is not attached to anything. Out that front window, I've got a farmyard with a farm cottage, and fields and fields and fields and fields and fields. There's nothing else over there. that side over there, I've got an orchard, and then you've got about 400 yards, and then you've got a few more houses at the top of the hill. Out the back, there's a massive, huge garden, and then the house is on a 45-degree angle. It's about 220 yards, and then this one is about 100 foot away. So this is the nearest property I've got to my house. So they must have been, I mean, I literally live in the middle of nowhere, but they must have been
That's
in
not a bad thing.
No,
Yeah, people suck sometimes, don't they?
very much so.
Yeah.
Well, where we live, we moved here just over a year ago, and we're kind of right at the back of the town. 2 minutes for Laura, I will add, we couldn't get far away. I tried to get the house and to build a house further away, but they weren't having none of it, Caroline. Do you know what I mean?
That's shocking, boss.
Says, look, Scott, we've already built the house. We're not moving it, so just, grin and bear it. But we're kind of at the back of beyond sort of thing as well. I mean, you go that way, and you go that way, then you've got where Laura lives, the scheme, shall we say.
Oh.
We stay in a brand new residential area called the Gardens, But then after this, there's nothing for what I don't know, a good 10 mile or something.
A good 10 mile, yeah.
About 10 mile before you hit a village.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of forgotten about. We don't even have a bus comes down. You just well get a car, or I'll be sending Laura to the shops every day. So we can see the shops in the knee.
Right.
But sometimes it's good to kind of live in the middle of nowhere with no people, because sometimes you say people can suck sometimes. But present company excluded. I will add that hastily.
Yeah, you've been a good pal to me recently, so yeah, you don't suck. You're okay.
You just watch what you're saying to me.
Say that again, Carol. I don't think Laura heard you.
It's recorded. You can play it back later.
I'm going to keep playing it back.
Yeah.
The last question before we wind it up. Is there a way to get rid of a poltergeist? Say somebody's got a poltergeist in their house, and their wits end. Is there a way to get rid of them?
No, because it's not them, is it? It's born from the person, and it's generally caused by stress, anxiety that's built up. There's a lot of broken people who exhibit this type of, stuff that happens. I think trying to sort out why they're broken, trying to sort out the anxiety that's attached to why, they are experiencing stuff, try to reduce their stress. It may go some way to result in reducing activity. But if it's gotten to be a long term, so if it's a chronic infestation of a poltergeist and it has been there for that long, it could have detached so that it's not belonging to that person necessarily anymore, and in times of stress it just kicks off. So I don't know, this is still stuff that nobody has got a definitive answer from. This is what we are, in the scientific realms of paranormal researchers and academia, this is what is believed to be the reasons why. But as for getting rid of it, no. And to be honest with you, I don't even think you can do that with a spirit either. If it's not hurting you and you can live amicably together, why would you want to get rid of it?
That's true. And I was just wondering, because no doubt there'll be people out there somewhere that probably get stuff going on and they just want it to end, or, that kind of thing. Okay, you get any questions for Caroline, Laura? Anything to add, my dear?
No, I'm quiet.
You're quiet? Did you say you're quiet? Well, in general or just now?
In general.
Okay, I'll tell you this, Caroline, just a wee quick snippet before we go. We were in Tesco I've lost a flip-flop, that's what I'm looking for. I've lost my other flip-flops. I've actually got my jammy bottoms and flip-flops on, and I'm not embarrassed. Know what I mean? Yeah, I'll prove it to you.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it the tartan ones?
I've only got half my Christmas jam. You don't know where the horse went. You know what I mean? So we were in Tesco about 2 weeks ago, something like that. You know, Sarah, the wee one, Laura, and myself, and I went. Well, I don't know if you do this to Martin. Actually, this is non-paranormal related. You go to Tesco, a supermarket with Martin, and Martin say, "Right, I'm going to grab a loaf," you know, and he's away literally 2 seconds, and he comes back, and you're about 10 aisles away.
Normally the other way round.
It's usually the other way around. Well,
yeah, it's normally me that says, I'm just going to pick something up, and then I go to put it into a trolley, and it's another man's trolley that stood there, and I'm saying, okay, you can pay for it if you want, but it's not your trolley. So no, I end up wandering up and down, getting the phone out, going, where are you? So it's the other way around. It
doesn't matter how many times you go up and down the middle aisle. You see the middle aisle you get, and you go to that up and down every, but you can never see them. They must be hiding at the end of each aisle. You can, but anyway, right. So we were in Tesco a couple of weeks ago. It was 4 days, and I don't know, I went to grab a loaf or something stupid, hot cross buns or something, and I could not find them anywhere, but I could hear them. When I say them, I mean one person in particular. And you know the size of Tesco Extra.
Were they calling, going, Scott?
No, they were just talking in general.
Come to eat me.
No, I'm quite loud if I'm way to begin, to be fair.
You know,
I giggle and we play and, you know, the normal stuff you do with an 8-year-old child.
And she thought, then there was a time, I think I'm going back a couple of years now, I left on Tesco. Because for some reason, we were in Tesco and she was stopped every 2 minutes to talk to somebody.
I know too many people.
And I gave up. A lot of them are saying to her as well, you know, who are you? Go away, I don't know you, you're a stranger, but she still stopped her. You know, security. But I actually get fed up. I left it. I said, you know what, I'm off. I'm going to do it. This is going to take me 3 days to go around Tesco. You know? And it was the same conversation. You know that conversation you have, you know, how are you? Not seeing you for ages. I don't like you, but I'm going to say hello anyway because I can't avoid you. It's a wee thin aisle, basically.
Oh, you're making me a lovely person, Scott.
I know. Anyway, I'll keep a hold of you after we come off, if that's all right. So where can people find you, apart from in your haunted house?
So they can find me writing for Haunted Magazine, best magazine on the planet. They can find me on Somerset Paranormal Investigators UK, either on the website, on Facebook page, on Instagram, or the Facebook group, or TikTok under my name, which is there.
And it's Caroline and not Catherine. I will emphasise that yet again.
Yeah, and I just tend to keep McKendrick for writing. So on TikTok, it's just Caroline McKendrick without the Gibson.
It sounds quite posh, but Caroline McKendrick-Gibson.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds
Don't be fooled by the label.
It sounds, tonight our guest is Mrs. Caroline McKendrick-Gibson. Sounds quite a posh name. No, I don't have any middle names. My mum and dad couldn't afford one. I'm from Glasgow. I mean,
well, Martin's only Gibson, so he's not quite as posh.
Is he just Martin? Has he got a middle name?
John.
I see. I don't have a middle. I know he's got a middle name apart from me. My mum and dad were too tight-fisted to buy me one, so I'm going to just make up my own one. I think.
Do it.
Clint or something like that. I think quite like Clint or Fred. You know, so it might be Scott F. I'm not telling my second name because people might Google me and turn up at New Year offering me steak pies. So I'm like,
I ken your second name.
Aye, give it to yourself.
I take blackmail.
Blackmail?
I take blackmail.
I thought you said blackmail.
No, dear.
I thought your words mixed up so he was born. You know what I mean? Car. Right, so a big thank you to Laura and this lady here for coming in. You will be seeing her again, and you'll be seeing Laura again. So we're going to wind up there, folks. We're off to Falkirk tomorrow morning, weather permitting. to film episode 4 of our Wallace Trail. And then tomorrow night we have CRA founders David Espinosa and Craig Adams coming in, who are also partners in our Wallace Trail. Just pre-Christmas catch-up, basically. And we'll be chatting about stuff. Don't know what yet, but we'll be chatting about stuff anyway. But, I mean, so we'll bid you good night just now. And big thanks for watching, and take care, and we'll see you later on. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.